Okay, we are back live with another Between the Pages book chat, and today our guest is fantasy author Susan Faw, who's a fellow Canadian, and we're here to talk about her Heart of the Citadel series, and I'm going to turn it over to her and let her introduce herself, so take it away.
Hi, so I'm Susan Faw. I live in Northern Ontario, Canada, and I have been writing fantasy for about 4 years now. Started after a kind of a brutal breakup with my employer, and after multiple years of working for that employer, suddenly found myself without work and decided it was time to indulge in my fantasies. So I decided to start writing, and The Heart of the Citadel, which is the series we'll be talking about today, is actually my second full-time series. So it is recently relaunched, I should say, with Velbrant, and I'm excited to be part of the team there. So great things are coming, and yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the series, what it's about, the fantasy aspects, whatever.
Concept of it all.
Yeah.
um, it's a little bit of a nod to Canadiana. I base my world around 10 provinces, and the world is centered on a citadel, um, which is the seat of power. And the citadel is originally um, part of the wizard keep of this world, and it's taken over by an emperor who decides he wants to control the magic of this world. So at the beginning of the series, we basically see the heroes and the heroines of this series who are crystal heart bearers. They are given a crystal heart at birth to indicate their magical powers. And when the emperor comes to power, he decides he wants to bring these people under his control. So in a coup, a great purge, he descends upon the provinces to find these people. At the same time, a series of dragons come to the world and start snatching away the heart bearers. And there's a broader plan at the heart of it all. Of course. So the intent of the dragons is to find their partner, their yin to their yang, to take them away to safety and then to return. But they only manage to get the women. The boys are actually captured by the emperor and end up under their control. So we end up with this scenario where these women end up having to come back and free their provinces from the grip of the emperor, while facing their counterpart who has been enslaved by the emperor as their evil nemesis as they come home. So the first book is more Heart of Destiny is more of a overview of the world, just kind of explaining how things have started and who the players are, in a quick overview. And then with Heart of Tear, we start into the actual journeys of the individual heart bearers. Um, the books are happening simultaneously, with very little variance between um, the players as they come along. They're both basically all 10 are released to come back and free their province as part of a greater plan. And each book, therefore, is following that particular heart bearer's journey back to her home province and the journey she has to go through to drop the magical barriers that keep the provinces separated. So,
So,
big
so
world.
all the so all the books basically take place on the same timeline then.
Yes, yes, with just a little bit. The order of the books is as they're arriving home, but we're only talking, a couple of weeks to a month between each heart bearer's return. And the reason that there is any variance at all is that they're actually crossing a time barrier to come back. So when they come through the portal, basically there's a little bit of variance as to when they actually arrive.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. So
Okay,
So of course
so
there's a bigger plan with the emperor, right? Which I'm slowly weaving into the books as we go along. And if you're watching the threads that are following through each novel, you'll start to see hints of the emperor's true plan and why he's doing all this, why it was so important for him to take over this world. So yeah, it's fun to weave. A lot of
uh,
things to remember. There are characters that cross from all the books. Come through all of them. So it's fun to try and keep their timeline straight and know where they're at in the plotting and what their ultimate destiny is going to be. But
okay,
yeah,
so tell us a little bit about the emperor. What's he like?
Emperor Madrid is he's a loner. He likes to do his own thing, to call his own shots. He has no problem with using people for whatever purpose he has in mind, as long as it's putting forward or moving forward his own agenda. Um, Human life is pretty negligible to him. Doesn't matter. There's reasons why it doesn't matter. um, yeah, so he's happy to step on any toes. He's happy to enslave and to manipulate and um, to take over wherever he needs to take over and put people in place in whatever position he needs to get his objectives done. Um, there is an additional element to all of this. Between the heart bearers and their dragon, there's also a third person that is important to them, and that is a djinn or genie partner. So it's actually a triad merge that happens in these books. There's a dragon, a human, and a genie, and all three of them can read each other's minds at the same time. So they have all these internal conversations that are happening that nobody else can hear, and they can do it over distance. So it makes for some interesting dynamics. And of course, the emperor is able to do this too with his dragon. So yeah, there's a lot happening,
Oh,
but
so
it's
the
fun.
emperor has a dragon too, does he?
Yes, yeah, oh yes, the emperor has a dragon. The emperor in starting this whole series actually stole dragon eggs from Jitessa, which is where that's the home of the dragons across the barrier, and he enslaves those eggs as they hatch to his purposes back in the main world. So it's yeah, there's lots of dragons. I like dragons.
Well,
Dragons are
I
cool.
think that's a general consensus, especially with the our audience, that everyone loves dragons.
You broke up a little bit there. What'd you say?
I said I think that's a general consensus, especially
With
with this
dragons?
audience. Yeah, everyone loves
Yes.
dragons.
Yes. Yes. I like to find a difference to dragons too. We tend to set them up as villains. In most literature that happens in the fantasy world, but in my world, they really are the good guys, and they've got a lot of intelligence. They're very smart. They're not animals by any stretch of the imagination. They're just beings in their own right that happen to have the skeleton that they have. So it's fun to play with these concepts and see how they interact with humans. And it's yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Okay, I'm curious as to why you mixed in the Jinn mythology with the dragons. So where did that inspiration come from?
I just felt that the jinn and genies in general are underappreciated in epic fantasy. They don't tend to come into that literature very much. It's more in the urban fantasy realm, or in the cute Disney realm, or something like that. But I just the when I was looking to put a shape shifting element into the stories, it was just genies that came to mind. They I just thought there was a way to utilize them as part of the whole storyline and make them important to what's going on, and they are. They're very important. They're critical, um, and just bring that foreign element to the story. So yeah, they're the shapeshifters of my series, and there's a lot of things they can do that the dragons can't, the humans can't. So important.
Yeah, but I like gin, so I was just wondering. It's one of my
Yeah,
favorite. I've written a short story with the gin in it recently, so I was just
yeah,
curious as to where it came from.
yeah. I thought it would just be fun to have them as that other subspecies that is in the land. So, and I include a lot of other creatures too. As we go to all these different provinces, they each have their own um, microcosm. I'm actually patterning a lot of the different provinces with influences from our real world. So when you're reading it through, it really feels like a different country when you get to that particular province. You leave the other book behind, and this is a whole new world again. So it's like worlds within worlds, and so it's fun to write because like right now my inspiration for Heart of Fjord that I'm writing right now, you probably can tell just by the name. I'm pulling a lot of Scandinavian influences into this book. The book before this, Heart of Bastion, was more Polynesian and Hawaii kind of feel to it. And the one before that, Heart of Shadra, is more indigenous Native American influences. So yeah, it's fun because I'm just taking cultures. Each of these heart bearers really reflects a different culture, and I love. I'm just having fun representing different cultures in fantasy. Uh, I think it's a cool way to reinterpret our own worlds. So yeah, it's part of the fun
Yeah,
part.
it sounds fascinating.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
what was the hardest scene or type of scene for you to write in the series?
In the series so far,
Hmm.
um, the conclusion to Heart of Shadra is really intense because it's Native American philosophies and beliefs. A lot of ancestral influences coming in there, and uh, a lot of. I really was fascinated by the indigenous peoples. Um, Spirituality, and how they approach, their beliefs of the world. And yeah, I pull a lot into that book of their culture. I hope respectfully, it's a fantasy world, right? So it departs somewhat, but um, I have a prayer pipe and I have magical slippers that do an ancestral dance and things along this line that, you know, hopefully, ring some true tones to their beliefs in that, and also makes the book fun. But at the end, there's a pretty dramatic scene where Shakoba has to make a choice, basically about the future of her spiritual ancestors as to, how they're going to continue in this world or not, as the case may be. And yeah, it was hard to write because, if you've ever lost a loved one, when you're faced with losing them again, it's yeah, it was hard. I found that scene pretty hard to write.
Okay,
You have to
so
read it to find out.
yeah, so on the opposite end, what was your favorite scene or type of scene to write in the series?
Favorite scene. Um, I loved writing the main introduction that you get with Heart of Destiny because it's actually a flashback to one of the characters that crosses all of the books and is a real major player in this whole scenario. And it's you can read it. You can read it on the Look Inside, on Amazon if you're curious to see what I'm talking about. But it's basically the fall of the witches' stronghold in Tyr, and she is the last champion, the last person in this world to be in a triad merger before the purge happens and the fall happens. And the fight that they have with the emperor, at that time, they're sure they're going to win, and of course they don't. And it was a lot of fun to write, just that first opening, sitting on the castle wall and you know the dragon tries to catch a bolt of lightning as it goes by, and there's some fun things that happen along that line. And yeah, it was a fun. I like to write my prologue or my main hook, because I spend a lot of time on those, because I think it's important for people to catch the spirit of a series right off the bat, and say, yeah, I know what this is going to be like, and be willing to dive into the series from there. So yeah, it's a good opening. It's fun. I actually use it a lot in my ads on Facebook, so it's a good one.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about some of the protagonists in the series. I mean, I know you've got a lot of books and more plans, so you don't have to go into all of them, but just give us an overview of a few interesting ones.
Yeah. So main characters, we have a very old wizard, which fantasy trope, yes, but very very much fun. Who has been around as long as the emperor has been around, and before. They actually know each other from before Madrid comes to power. So he is central in that he knows the history of the past 400 years, and he knows what the emperor is actually all about. He's an old man, but he has a pivotal role to play in the world. We have Marion, who I spoke about a couple minutes ago, as the main female wizard witch in the series. She is um, one to disregard the rules if they need breaking, and go about things her own way. And she's a very strong, capable woman, who's not afraid to stand up and fight for magic. So she's very pivotal. Um, there are a couple of uh, people who are introduced early, who run afoul of the wild magic that's running through the land now that the controls have been eliminated, and are transformed by some of the elemental that are escaping in this world. And they have pivotal roles to play later on, as it connects back to the dragons and the dragon eggs, and the dragons that are starting to reappear in this world. Um, yeah, and like I said, there's always another interesting character, but those are three of the big ones. As far as the heart bearers are concerned, the old adage, some will live, some will die, on both sides. We can't go to the final book with 20 major players. We try to whittle it down along the way. So yeah, I'm still. We're just coming up on the halfway point. This is book 5 that I'm writing now. So as I go along, I'm deciding who's going to live and who's going to die as we kind of move through the series. And this might not be the people that you think. I'm not sure who
Ooh.
everybody is yet either. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah.
Okay, so you write fantasy, obviously, but are there any other genres that you've written in that you or would like to write in?
I love fantasy, so I'll always be a fantasy author. I am taking um, a dive into gaslight fantasy with a series that I've got planned out here. Um, it is called The Guardians of Le Jardin, and what it is a portal fantasy, basically. Gaslight is to the fantasy realm what steampunk is to science fiction. So it's magic in a real world setting, but not urban in the fact that there's werewolves. This is gaslight. So it's going to be real events with a magical twist. So the premise on the series is that we have a family of art historians and restoration experts who have magical powers, and um, their family is. I'm trying to look for the right word here. From the beginning of the time, their purpose as a family has been to control the despots and the evil rulers who would come to power and run away with power, because that power is usually based in the ability to perform magic or to alter things because of your magical abilities. So what they do is when a ruler comes to power and is going off the rails, they know that there's magic involved, is they paint their souls into their portraits to stop them from being able to go off the rails and take over the world. So their family's duty is to maintain these paintings and these portraits in museums and private collections and all of these type of things, and make sure that the magical barriers don't degrade. Because if they do, then of course this person may just very well step out of his portrait and away he goes, right? So this is basically what happens in the first book, of course. um, we set it up with an estranged family, and the son comes home and finds that the smoke detectors are going off in the house, and the muffins are burning in the oven, and it's outside back to the art studio that his mom maintains in the back in a separate building. The thing is, she's just gotten excuse me, just gotten busy in her restoration work and just lost track of time. And when he goes upstairs to find her, she's dead on the floor in front of the portrait that she was working on. And so he panics and starts running through the studio, trying to figure out what's happened, looking to see if there was a break in, basically touching everything and leaving his prints everywhere through this whole crime scene. And when he comes back to the portrait to try and take a look at what's going on there, a scalpel whizzes past his head and embeds itself in the chair behind him. And it's at that point he realizes it's actually the portrait that's murdered his mother. So, in a mad panic, of course, he he loads up all of his mom's art supplies, all the pictures that she's working on, anything that she's ever had that was related to what she's been doing. Shoves it in the Winnebago out back, and then he sets fire to the carriage house, and basically flees the scene, and becomes the source of a massive worldwide, manhunt while he goes to try and figure out what this is all about. So that's kind of where the premise where this all starts, and he goes in search of answers, which means he has to go find his family, his estranged family, and find out what's going on. So that's a series that I'm fleshing out and getting ready to write. I've got parts of the first book written, and yeah, we'll be working on those two side by side.
Well, that one sounds very interesting, so I'll look for it in the coming
Yeah,
months.
yeah, it's coming.
Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up here for today, and I'll let
Okay.
you tell everyone where they can find you and your books.
So you can find me on Facebook at author Susan Faw. You can find me on Twitter at Susan D. Faw. And then on Instagram, I'm Susan Faw Author. I believe that's how I have it set up. Yeah, so you can find me in all those places.
Okay, so
And
thank
I
you
got
for
my
being
website, of course, too. So SusanFaw.com.
okay. So
Yeah,
thank you for being here today. It was a pleasure
thank you
chatting
for
with you.
having me.
And Between the Pages book chat, we'll be back tomorrow with another author. So join us then. So, bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.